Katherine May describes wintering as a season in the cold. It's a fallow period in life when you're cut off from the world, feeling rejected, sidelined, blocked from progress, or cast into the role of an outsider. Maybe you're in a season like this right now, or perhaps you'd like to be more prepared for the next winter that arrives. If so, this one's for you.
We're about to witness the greatest miracle of the machine age.
The Gentle Rebel Podcast.
I'm so glad you could come. This is going to be such an exciting day. I hope you enjoy it. I think you will.
Hey, so welcome to the Gentle Rebel Podcast. I'm Andy Mort, and this is where we explore the intersection of high sensitivity, creativity, and contemporary culture. We have just wrapped up our exploration of Wintering by Katherine May, this lovely little book in the Haven Book Club. And I've been reflecting on all sorts of things after our discussion we had a few days ago, and some of the thoughts that came up as I was reading the book. And I noticed many parallels between the themes in the book and some of the foundational values that gave rise to the Return to Serenity Island, which is a course that I first created at the start of 2021 and currently running it again in the spring of 2025. And I was, inspired to take a less linear approach to thinking about things like change and personal growth and goal setting and all that kind of stuff. And reading Wintering, it was like, this book kind of expresses some of the stuff that was really going on beneath the surface for me as I was exploring all of that stuff really nicely. So I want to pick out some of the things that really caught the sleeve of my attention as I was reading Wintering and as we were talking about it on Sunday in the Haven Book Club. And just share some of these reflections with you by hopefully way of encouragement and validation for you, whichever season you find yourself in right now. Maybe you recognize this sort of wintering season. You're in one of those phases of life, or you simply want to be kind of more ready for the next one that arrives, because these are normal and natural parts of life. They do come, whether we want them to or not. And so, Katherine May describes wintering as a season in the cold. It's a fallow period in life when you're cut off from the world, feeling rejected, sidelined, blocked from progress, or cast into the role of an outsider. This might be through a sudden crisis, the loss of something or someone, or it might be a gradual drift that occurs over time. And so wintering is about allowing rest and retreat to come. Katherine May suggests that every time we winter, we develop a new knowledge about how to go back into the world. She says we learn about our tastes and preferences in new ways. We learn about what makes us happy. And so when we accept the winter, when we allow it to be and allow ourselves to be within it, we don't need to use up unnecessary energy resisting it or trying to force it away. We may never choose to winter, she says, but we can choose how. We all know this idea that, change is going to happen whether or not we want it. And all we really have control of is our response to it. But this isn't just a reactive thing where we focus on our thoughts or our mindset in response to the things that happen, trying to reframe situations or whatever. Wintering is also about preparation and readying, choosing our responses, building our nests, growing our confidence before we need those things, knowing that there will be a time when the winter returns. And she writes, to get better at wintering, we need to address our very notion of time, to imagine our lives as cyclical rather than linear. And so this cyclical notion of growth is why picturing and embodying life as an island can be so helpful, which is, what I came to do with the Return to Serenity Island. Rather than a list of things to do or, a view of growth as a perpetual line from one side of the paper to the other, this up and to the right idea of growth. Life is about seasons, returning through the same point again and again, not in a way of being stuck or pessimistic, or like I'm going back to the same place, but instead actually just being freely anchored to this return, to this path back through the places that we've been, recognizing the growth, spiraling into the depth of our experience, our wisdom, our awareness, growing around cornerstones that matter to us, developing a shell like a snail, as we explored in the previous episode, that reflects and expresses like a piece of art the passing of time and the person that we are forever in the process of becoming. While we might hold this image of wintering as a starting point or a wake-up call of some sort, it is a perfectly natural and normal part of life. Unfortunately, we've gradually eroded our connection with these moments. As Katherine May says, treating each winter as an embarrassing anomaly that should be hidden or ignored. But we start where we are, and we can't force the next season to arrive before it's ready. We can't use toxic positivity and fake mindset hacks to push through a season. And more than that, we don't need to want to do that. Wintering is a moment, Katherine May says, when you need to shed a skin. And this is a radical act, choosing to slow down, letting spare time expand, and getting enough sleep and rest. If you shed this skin, you'll expose all those painful nerve endings and feel raw. But if you don't, the old skin will harden around you. She says some winters are gradual. Some winters creep up on us so slowly that they've infiltrated every part of our lives before we truly feel them. And again, this image of Serenity Island came out of this idea that we drift at times without realizing we are drifting away from ourselves, away from the things that matter. And this isn't about overcoming winter or fighting it or pretending it isn't happening or wishing it away. This is an acknowledgement that we can actively partner with the season. We can find healing, not despite our challenges and our pains, but within them, through them. After all, as Katherine May says, you apply ice to a joint after an awkward fall. Why not do the same to a life? And she describes winter as a time for the quiet arts of making, coming home to ourselves through crafting, making things with our hands. And while it might not be a word you associate with yourself, I believe creativity, especially the non-pressure kind that we engage with just for its own sake, can be a beautiful source of ice to apply to our wounds. It can be playful and rebellious. It can be thoughtful and exploratory. It can be whatever we want it to be, whatever we need it to be. When we let go of the demands and expectations that we have layered upon and around our creative spirit, summed up by Catherine's commentary about how in 21st century Britain we've linked singing with talent, and we've got that fundamentally wrong. The right to sing, she says, is an absolute. Regardless of how it sounds to the outside world, we sing because we must. How often do we stifle our singing? Do we stifle our creativity, our playfulness, for fear of what others might think? And how we've learned to ridicule those who have the audacity to sing without embarrassment, without shame, without the inhumane talent that we demand of them. As humans, we have an innate connection to creativity, to excessive, inefficient, beautifully wasteful, playful outpourings of who we are, what we see and how we feel. I think we know this intrinsically. We have a connection to this idea, and yet there is this voice that says, stop. It says, hold on a second. What's the purpose of this? It's an inefficient use of your time. It's below your pay grade. There's a real source of pain that we experience in the modern world that emanates from this demand to be ever productive, to be useful. Katherine writes, in a mere slip of the pen, I could fall into this tired old trope. The bees are models of industry, be more like the bees. This is something that we hear a lot. These false comparisons, taking examples from the natural world and applying them to people, often to justify the perpetuation of hierarchies and systems that benefit the few at the expense of the many. But as she says, and I very much agree, usefulness in itself is a useless concept when it comes to humans. I don't think we were ever meant to think about others in terms of their use to us. We channel our adoration towards the most helpless citizens of all, babies and children, for reasons that have nothing to do with their future utility. We flourish on caring, on doling out love. It's how we thrive. Our winters are social glue. And so the injunction to be useful, to be productive, to be efficient is breaking already broken people. There's been this subtle reframe of creativity over the past decade or two as mattering only if it has a productive outcome. Something to share, something to sell, something to show at the end of the process. This is what I think of as the adult fog that can so quickly descend on us, blocking out the childlike spirit that connects us with the mystery, the creativity, the curious adventure that we're aching and yearning to explore and express in our lives. Creativity and play for their own sake, which, when approached in that way, become surprising and unpredictable sources of connection within, around and between us. Katherine talks about the White Witch in Narnia as an embodiment of this adult half of Christmas that usurps the magic and the mystery. She carries a suggestion of Christmas, the sweets and food, the promise of gifts, but also the way that it forces children to dance with their own greed for a season, encouraged to desire worldly goods, but also scolded for wanting them too much and with too much alacrity. I think that's so beautifully put. So if you recognise any of these pressures and demands right now, I'd love to invite you to join me on Serenity Island. You can hang out there for a year. You're welcome to join me on Zoom for our periodic picnics where we kind of check in and spend some time just resting together, chatting about what's going on, doing some journal prompts, just generally slowing down and learning about one another and from one another. I'd absolutely love to invite you in there. Doors close at the end of February for our spring voyage. The next one after that is going to be our autumn voyage, most likely in October. So yes, if this feels like a good time for this for you right now, then please do join. Drop me a message if you have any questions about the course, about what you can expect, or about registration or anything like that. I will answer you as soon as I possibly can. So head over to serenityisland.me to learn more and to sign up. And I will be back again soon with another episode of the Gentle Rebel podcast. Until then, do remember that you are an artist. The world really needs your art. Now go and make somebody's day. Bye-bye.
So shines a good deed in a weary world. In disguise, we can be, 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 we can all be angels in disguise, we can be.